Welcome back to the draft plan. So guys, let's just kind of talk overview here before the Jets to this draft. There were clear areas of need going into the offseason. I don't think a lot of people expected them to address so many of them via free agency. So it opens up some flexibility. There's not necessarily a absolute have to spend first round picks on this type of position. So Leger, how did the Jets win this draft? What is the focus in your mind as they head into draft day?
Yeah, they have to come away with a top tier edge rusher. So I would say that's probably the main thing. I know you said there's no glaring need, but to me, that's a glaring need on this team because the NFL is run by passers and pass rushers, and you have to be able to get to the quarterback. Another thing they need to come away with is a viable receiver. Now, they don't need to come away with a surefire number one. They need to come away with somebody that could potentially develop into a number one. And that's the issue, because I know a lot of Jet fans are beating the table to take one in the top 10 with either the 4 pick or the 10 pick. But on my draft board, I don't have any receiver that is a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, Leger nailed it, right? When it comes down to it, number 4, you got to be thinking, how do we get a top flight pass rusher in here? That's got to be the 4th overall pick in my eyes. And then number 10 is a little bit more flexible. I know people are, thinking about maybe moving out from there or to go a different route of position. You got to be careful. If there's a guy on your board you evaluate differently as the top flight guy, maybe you like Drake London to go up, play above the rim, be a contested catch threat for Zach Wilson. Maybe you like Jameson Williams. You tried to trade for Tyreek Hill, it didn't work out. Now you have somebody with sub 4.3 speed. Reminds me of what Mike Wallace was for the Steelers. Somebody that constantly wins down the field. And when he's not being thrown the ball, that opens up the run game and the matchups for players like Elijah Moore and Corey Davis.
Connor, you mentioned it about the thought process of maybe trading down one of those top 2 picks. What is the situation? I know you want to be careful, but what is the situation in your mind where that would be warranted, where that would make sense for this team?
It would have to be a significant amount of draft capital. When I think of that, I look at a team coming up for a quarterback, and I would not go further back than the Pittsburgh Steelers at 20 because I wouldn't want to be picking behind New England. I think New England is going to be looking at similar needs as the Jets in this draft, where you're worried about them maybe taking the wide receiver you like, worried about them maybe taking even a linebacker you like, or a player in that capacity. So I think 20 would be as far back as you go, and you need to get serious capital. You might be flipping the picks and getting 2 more day 2 assets, and you're not going in with a 10 to 12 rookie class. You're going to package those day 2 assets and go back into round 1. So in turn, what you're really doing is making sure that you pick in every phase of the draft. You're picking at 4, then maybe you're picking at 20, and then maybe you're picking at the back end of round 1 because you have all of these day 2 assets that you're walking out with 3 above average starters from day 1 instead of a volume class for once in Joe Douglas's era.
If you look at the Jets being at the number 4 spot, the number 5 spot are the New York Giants, and they're in major need for an upgrade on their offensive line. So they would love to come away with a draft where they could get Ekwonu O'Neal and maybe Charles Cross to really solidify their line since they're picking at 5 and 7. So maybe Joe D calls, New York and says, hey, we're at pick number 4. Ekwonu O'Neal is here. We're going to take him unless, you want to trade up, maybe give up a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. And, we'll swap spots for 1 spot. You can get your offensive lineman and we can get our elite edge rusher. Then with that extra 2nd or 3rd round pick, as Connor said, right, use some of that draft capital to trade maybe back into the 1st round. Now you have 3 first round picks and you kind of solidify and make sure that you get one of your top receivers out of this draft class. If you don't think a guy like, Christian Watson falls to the 2nd round or Dotson from Penn State falls to the 2nd round, you trade back into the 1st round and you get 3 first round picks.
All right, fellas, so here we go. Joe Douglas, I know he was tuning into all these. He's got all of your thoughts on the matter, and now it's on him to make it happen. And really, all joking aside, we talked about this at the end of the season. 2 years ago, Joe Douglas's draft, not looking great. Last year's draft, especially if Zach Wilson pans out, A+ home run grand slam. Free agency's looking good this offseason. I think a lot of Jets fans are happy. There's so much draft capital. If this draft is anything like last year's draft, all of a sudden now the Jets have put themselves in position to finally be a team that contends for the playoffs. So we'll see where they go with it. For all your Jets draft coverage and draft needs, of course, keep it locked to SNY and all of SNY's